all the things you said before about all the things you loved about me. Add you to the broken list of men who once adored me. Now something in your eyes has changed the way you say you feel about me. Can't accept this new arrangement. I'm starting to panic. You don't look at me like I'm magic anymore. And loving me become such an awful chore. You don't look at me like I'm magic anymore. But you said you always would, baby. You swore. All the dreams I had for us and all the dreams we shared together. I remember when it felt like I was your queen. We sit, we talk, the spark is gone. You're cold now when you're so withdrawn. I never thought you had it in you to be so mean. You don't look at me like I'm magic anymore. And loving me become such an awful chore. You don't look at me like I'm magic anymore. But you said you always would, baby. You swore. You don't look at me like I'm magic anymore. You don't look at me like I'm destined to be yours. You don't look at me like I'm magic anymore. And I thought you always would, baby, for sure. You don't look at me like I'm magic anymore. And it all feels so different from before. And I know that I should walk away, but I'm so torn. And all the magic I once had become yours.
This is WKNC 88.1 FM Raleigh. I am your host, Loaf, and this is Off the Record, an interview podcast series here at WKNC where artists of many shapes, sizes, genres, and backgrounds are interviewed. And in this edition, I have the honor of speaking with Grace Sullivan, aka Wish Queen, a dream pop, art pop, sort of indie type vibe, Cleveland artist, ahead of her newest single, Magic, from her upcoming album, Saturnalia. Grace, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I am well. Welcome to WKNC and everything in general.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So how has the past sort of month and year been treating you? Have you been really hard at work with your music and sort of everything in general, or have you just been sort of spacing out? Like what's up with it? What was the general vibe?
It's been really busy.
Yeah.
It's been really busy. I'm really looking forward to having everything out in the world so I can let go of it, because I think if you sit with something too long or listen to it over and over again, it can drive you a little crazy. So once I think the legwork is done and it's kind of taking on a world of its own, I can breathe a sigh of relief. This has been a really busy year so far. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's always good to keep busy, and especially with something where it's kind of balled up like that. Like you just need a release for it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it's just sort of just like music and sort of art exists because that's a sort of release.
Exactly.
Right?
That's why we need it.
Yeah. So where are you originally from?
So I grew up just outside of Cleveland, Ohio, and that's where I'm living right now. But I do have some North Carolina connections.
Cool.
Went to UNC Wilmington for college, and I lived in Wilmington and Asheville for a little bit. Yeah, I just love it here. So I always try to come back a few times a year.
Awesome. So I guess so I'm always interested in sort of local scenes in general. I'm really much into the Raleigh local scene. How is the Cleveland local scene like going on? Is like thriving? Is there a lot of like radio stations that are playing local music? Like what's it like up there?
Yeah, there's a lot of talent. I've got a lot of friends who play all different types of music. There's a big kind of like grunge scene and the alternative rock scene. There's a lot of kind of underground venues that play all sorts of local artists. And then recently, there's a few artists, myself included, who are kind of creating this dream pop scene in Cleveland, and that's been really fun. There's a lot going on in Cleveland.
Would you say that your sort of dream pop sound is more sort of up and coming in a sort of minority in comparison to sort of alternative type sounds in Cleveland?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a tendency to play a little bit harder.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I feel that. Cool. So, I guess Wish Queen, how'd you originally come up with that name? It seems like, Wish Queen, like what's up with it?
So, I'm kind of always making wishes and like coming up with little stories and like
Yeah.
and very like, I'm a little like I don't even know like I don't know what the word is. Like,
yeah. You're
like
very
spiritual in that
aspirational,
way.
spiritual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like a little new agey. And then I was like, I don't know, I'm always like, when we make it to the bridge, you get to make a wish. If you let a bug out of your house, you get to make a wish. Like kind of all these like fake mythologies.
Yeah.
And my friend Zach one day was like, okay, Wish Queen, like kind of making fun of me. And it was at the same time that we'd been trying to come up with a name for the Wish Queen project. And
Okay.
everyone in the room kind of looked at each other like, oh, that's kind of nice.
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
stuck. So
Okay.
yeah, it kind of happened naturally.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess like that's where it brings me back to like my own personal experiences with side of wishing and whimsical type of feelings. Where I know that during high school, I'm not sure if you're like this, but when you're on a bus, when you're on a school bus, I don't know if it's just a North Carolina thing, and you're going over a rail, you like touch a screw and lift up your feet off the ground and you make a wish.
Yeah.
So like I mean like it's very cool to see that sort of whimsical sort of astrological type feelings in like artists and sort of art in general, which
Yeah.
I think that you've captured perfectly in your upcoming album Saturnalia and Magic, your single.
Well, we all have our own like types of little mythologies and stories or things like rituals that we do. Like friend groups all have their own individual things. So it's fun to be able to tap into that.
I guess more like philosophically, what does Wish Queen mean to you? Is it more that sort of whimsical, like astrological feeling, or is there something else to it?
So I think in the beginning, I was viewing Wish Queen, and I still do, as kind of a higher self, like alter ego manifestation of, making things happen, like making wishes come true kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the more that I wrote music and kind of found my voice as an artist, I realized that it was taking on the other meaning of wishing, like hoping and yearning, because most of my songs are really sad. So it's kind of a two sides of the same coin, I think. So like wishing and the hope of like wishing things were different or hoping for something and like in a sad kind of nostalgic way. And then also tapping into like that artist, that kind of channel that I also view Wish Queen as. So it's like both meanings of the word wish.
Is there a specific goal or like feeling that you wanted to capture with Wish Queen that it are like you sort of like a like sort of at least for me, it's very sort of like longing, sort of whimsical, sort of just like wishing something was there that isn't. Or at least that's how I get it. Is there anything that you thought that you wanted to specifically capture with your music and wanted other people to experience?
Yeah, so the album, the debut album, Saturnalia, really tells a story. And in the beginning, it's kind of that wishing things were different, hoping, longing kind of feeling, the angst, the feeling like something's wrong or you're missing something, like sorrow, all of those things mixed up in one. And as the album goes on, it kind of transforms into a story of self-actualization and coming into oneself and kind of shedding all those fears and insecurities and regrets.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the journey of the album, and that's why it's called Saturnalia, because it's about the astrological Saturn return, which is when Saturn comes back to the place it was when you were born, and it's known as the full maturation of your chart and really like coming into yourself at that moment. So I wrote it during my Saturn return, and so there's a lot of layered meanings in the story of the album.
So, as an artist, do you have any like major musical influences? Any artists that you like really look up to, aspire to, or anything that, or any like one album or like artists that you always have on repeat, like constantly through a playlist, or what?
I definitely go through phases. I'm a Joni Mitchell lover all the way. I always have been, and I feel like her album Hejira and Court and Spark, those two are kind of always on repeat for me. I love Joanna Newsom. Have One on Me and Divers have been huge influences lyrically. And more recently, I'm really into Ethel Cain, and I love her new album Preacher's Daughter, but her older EP Golden Age was a big influence for this album, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
So with these sort of artists, do you look at their music as more of an aspiration, a goal to have set, or do you look at it more as sort of like, okay, I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna go my own direction, or like how independent are you with your thoughts of music, like compared to like, looking at other artists?
I feel like I'm always kind of taking a little bit here and there. I don't know if there's like a specific person I can look to and be like, oh, I want to be just like that. I definitely am the kind of person who, if I love something, I'll listen to it over and over and over and over again until it's like embedded into my brain, and then I'll be like, okay, I can't listen to this anymore for a while, and
that's
then move
with
on.
me. And there's this artist called Homeless Ware, and they just came out with a new album called The Wailer. Like legitimately, like I couldn't make a DJ set like this past week because I was just listening to their album like nonstop, and like it's a perfect sound. So
yeah, I totally understand. So I think just after years and years of doing that with various artists, I don't even really know what has stuck and
nice.
like what has. Because Witch Queen, I mean, there's definitely specific influences, but I would like to think that it's a project all on its own. I can't really, like, when people ask me to compare it or describe it in terms of like a genre, I always have a hard time. I'm not really sure yet. And maybe that'll be easier once I can hear what other people think it sounds like, because I feel like I'm a little too close to it to really accurately say that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess getting into the music, I guess more generally, how would you going to the genre? How would you define your own music? I sort of at least what I wrote down is it's very slow, sort of methodical crawl of sounds and rhythms, and you can also have just like very fast, loose sort of dance of sounds, or is it just something more in between? Because when I was listening to the album and the new single Magic, I definitely saw those sort of just like dynamics into it. So how would you define it?
Yeah, I think, and I worked it very closely in collaboration with my producer Austin Benyek on this album, and I think it was a mind meld of like both of our different influences. So this is the question that's so hard for me to answer.
It's no problem. I always like asking this question because it really makes like people think.
Yeah.
Like, especially like, how do you define your own feelings and your expression of them? Without just like pointing to what you did and be like, hey,
Yeah.
this is it. So
I've always written like poetry, and I think that's how all of the songs started, like just as very personal poetry that
Mhm.
I kind of held very closely for a long time, and then decided to try to set to music. So I was like singing different melodies, kind of things that just like came to my head. I didn't really think about them too hard. And then working with Austin, we tried a bunch of different sounds and a bunch of different styles for these melodies. And what really resonated, I think, was these shimmering full synths and a bunch of different layers. Like all the songs are very layered, and they all kind of had this slow burn, like this steady chug forward into this like nice crescendo towards the end of the song. But they're all a little bit longer, a little bit more steady, a little bit meditative, I think. Yeah. So I think those are some words I would describe the songs with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess like, well, getting into it more. So I'm personally, at least this semester, I'm taking an astronomy class, which is very much lined up with sort of just like Saturn return and sort of like what I think of sort of space and sort of just like astrology in general, where it's like it's very just out there. It's observable, and you can just, I guess, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get it right. How would you describe astrology? You know, I don't know.
I would describe it as like computer code for our experiences on Earth. Like the stars are like some sort of code for how we are made up and what our experiences are and what our cycles are. I work very closely with an astrologer named Eliza Kelly, and I'm still studying with her. Like there's so much to learn. As soon as you think you have a grasp on it, it's such more of a layered, deeper, really like science than people realize it is. Yeah. And I know some people roll their eyes when I start talking about astrology, but I'm all in.
Okay. So are those sort of ideals transferred over to your music very one to one, or is it just more sort of just like you're modifying it into something that's more like digestible? Yes.
I think it's just a piece. You know, I wouldn't say that the album, even though it's called Saturnalia and it's based on the experience of your Saturn return, it's just a piece of it. Like I wouldn't say it's all encompassing or, you know, astrology themed necessarily, but it definitely plays an influence.
Let's talk about, I guess, Saturnalia in general. The your new upcoming album. What is it coming out?
So it comes out on October 27th, and I'm excited because it's the weekend before Halloween. It's gonna have kind of a spooky vibe to it.
Nice.
We're having a release party and show that weekend in Cleveland, at the Grog Shop. It's one of, you know, our main local venues. So I'm really,
that's a sick name, by the way.
Yeah,
it seems really cool. Is it like a vinyl like type shop, or like what is it?
No, it's been around for a while, and a bunch of artists have come through. It's more of an intimate venue, but it's got great sound, great history. There's a couple different stages. I don't know. Do you know who Julia Jacqueline is?
No.
I just saw her at the Grog Shop a couple weeks ago, and it was the best show I've ever seen. It's like it's that kind of that vibe where like everyone in the room just loves the music, and it's smaller, but everybody's paying attention. It's really great energy. Yeah, I'm really excited to play there.
Nice. If you could put like an overall theme or just like feeling on Saturnalia, what would you put on it exactly?
I would say the journey of kind of shedding limiting beliefs and fears and regrets and coming into oneself. So yeah, I think people who are experiencing change or loss or just growing up and facing reality the way it is now with all of its faults and shortcomings will really resonate with this album. So
talking about your experiences personally, especially with like Saturn return and sort of a returnal of self, is this album sort of more of a journey to that return to a destination, or is it more of just a continuing journey? Because it definitely seems like it's, or at least how I view it, it is definitely a return to something that you lost, or maybe something that was that is now gained. So like, is that return and sort of like the expansion of it sort of like a destination or a journey for you in this album, and just personally?
Definitely a journey. I think, everything happens in cycles, which is a common theme in the album. Actually, it's interesting that you asked this, because the first song starts the way the last song ends, with kind of this like heart drum beat. So the symbolism behind that is that like we're always kind of coming back to where we started. We're always coming back to the same realizations and the same, kind of epiphanies, and then like, sometimes bad patterns again and again. So both, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this journey always the same, or is it different for like whenever you're listening to the album, or whenever you're like personal experiences in the album? When you look back at it, when you listen to it, do you always are you always picking out something new to it, or is it just it, or is it always sort of like the same constant journey, like that's been marked and sort of
Yeah,
written?
I think every time I listen to it, I gain a deeper understanding of what it is about, because I think a lot of it was subconscious and I didn't even really realize the story within it until afterwards. I was just kind of writing, and Austin and I were recording and just kind of plugging along, and kind of had a general idea, but now that it's all done and set, listening to it now, I can, like, it feels like there's deeper meanings that even I can gather every time, which has been really cool. And of course, as an artist, sometimes if I listen to a song too many times, I start listening for things that I don't like. So I've had to stop listening and take a little break.
Okay. So I got a lot of it was sort of discovering yourself, looking at your past. Is that something that you wanted to evoke with others while listening to Saturnalia? Because that's how I sort of felt when I listened to the album. Was like I was very much sort of like introspective and sort of like discovering, I guess, like little things about me, like through your lens of sort of like cycles and sort of just like longing and sort of depression. Is that something that you wanted to evoke with others, or is it just or is it just that like a happy side effect of it all?
So, the first half of the album is really kind of a breakup album. And I think the cycle that I was stuck in for a long time was being in these unhealthy relationships and kind of attaching myself to people that I knew weren't good for me, but kind of letting that drag me down instead of being uncomfortable and sitting with myself and doing the work and thinking about what I actually wanted and who I was. So I think a lot of people can relate to that, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, for better or for worse, it's something that I think everybody goes through. And eventually choosing yourself and realizing that you can shed these kind of unnecessary layers of bad decisions and grief and holding on to things that aren't working. So yeah, I hope that resonates with a bunch of people, because that's really a common experience, especially in your 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely I can definitely relate. It's 20s. It's a very transitional period. You're very much sort of getting out of college, or like sort of just like in the middle of it. You're sort of just discovering new things, new interests, and you're sort of like trying to grasp onto different things and sort of like trying to pull it in.
Yeah.
But then
absolutely,
like just sometimes you just gotta like let some stuff go.
Yeah.
And all type of stuff. So.
Yeah.
Cool. So talking I guess about your latest single, your first single off of the album, Magic. How do you feel about it being out right now? What do you hope that people get out of it? Like what's your initial reaction? Like how do you feel about it?
it's technically not out, but it will be out by the time this interview airs, right?
Yeah.
So I'll pretend. I'm imagining it's gonna feel really, really good at this time to kind of just send it out into the world on its own. Magic is about being in love for maybe the first time or a time that feels really consuming and feels very sure. Like you're sure you're meant to be with this person, and then you start to feel their feelings change for you. And it's something that we've all been through, and it's horrible and it's awful. And so kind of looking back and wondering what changed, what happened, how can I hold on to this? And it's a very, sad, sorrowful song. And we just filmed a music video for it that's going to be coming out on the same day. And it has kind of a lot of correlations with that haunted melody. It's we filmed it at this like old theater outside of Cleveland in Canton, at the Canton Palace Theater.
Nice.
It's this gorgeous, like ornate theater. And we got this amazing film crew. Nick Cavalier was the film director. And he got all these vintage camera lenses and things like that. And so it's a magic show set in like, 1920s early film style period. So it's almost filmed like a silent film from that period, and it's very spooky and alluring. And so I think the video coming out with the single at the same time will evoke a lot of emotion.
How is it like shooting music videos like this? Because it's, I feel like it's hard to get feelings out like audioly. Just like trying to get something like pat down, just like that you're satisfied with. Is it? Do you go through like the same like any emotions of just like sort of like conflict in yourself, how you want to represent your audio, your music in a video format, or is it kind of just like very like straight on like?
Oh, absolutely. Like I guess this doesn't always happen, but as I was writing the song Magic, I had this concept in my head for the video, and I kept seeing just like puffs of smoke and like kind of old fashioned magician's assistants in this like very kind of creepy way on a screen. So working with Nick to kind of bring that image to life, and he storyboarded the whole thing. I mean, it was the most professional shoot I've ever been a part of so far. It was very, very cool. I'm really excited to see how it turns out, but it's very much in line with the story and the mood of the song. So I feel really good that they go hand in hand together.
Okay.
It was a different process than songwriting. It definitely more collaborative with film.
Definitely.
But yeah, it really feels like one and the same. Like they both evoke a very similar message.
Nice. So I don't think it's that far of a stretch that this is a very somber tale of sort of love and just sort of losing it, and sort of just like giving it to, at least how I feel, it's sort of like losing your love to someone that you loved, and they're just sort of more like taking it and regret, well, not that they don't appreciate the love that you've given. Is this more of a sort of a personal tale for you, something you got from experience, or is it just something that you've observed with others?
Yeah, unfortunately it is.
Yeah.
And I think the experience of watching kind of in slow motion somebody start to fall out of love with you for whatever reason is really hurtful, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it's not even really anyone's fault. It's just like sometimes love changes and nobody knows why. Yeah. And it's sad and it's heartbreaking, and
it's it's fearful.
Yeah.
Like, especially just like, just you've loved somebody and then they just all of a sudden just like you can see them not loving you. It's like, man.
Yeah, and it's the risk that we take, like going into love or a relationship, that it could change for you or it could change for them kind of at any point, and it's terrifying, but you got to do it.
Yeah. You got to take like those risks in order to find something, I guess, permanent or more anything like that. I guess speaking on permanence, and sort of that feeling in general, it feels definitely musically that you're just on a wave of sort of just like currently leading somewhere to a more, not necessarily a predetermined end, but it's kind of just like you don't know the end, but you know there's an end, right? And that's how I feel with your music and your sort of just vibe in general. Do you always have a destination for each of your songs? Like when you're making them, do you always have a sort of like a set put sort of a journey roadmap that you want to take, or is it the song evolving with you as you're sort of singing it? I know that you said you had poetry that you've written. Is it more based on the poetry you're writing, or is it more of an expansion of that, sort of riding that wave?
So I think the way that I write music might be a little different because I don't play an instrument. So the way that I write music is just kind of singing nonsense to myself until something sticks. And it usually is like I'll hear, and sometimes the songs come like fully formed, and that feels really cool, like some sort of weird channel. But other times, mostly it'll come just like a phrase, like or a little snippet of something, and I'll just sing it with myself for the next few days, and then sit down on my computer and write it out. Try to see if I can flesh out, more lyrics, a chorus, a bridge, that kind of stuff. And I feel like after that first initial little snippet that pops into my head, I don't really know where it's going to go, and it's fun. It's like putting a puzzle together. And there's been a couple songs that like I had no idea they were going to turn out the way they did. Like Magic, I kind of always knew what I wanted it to be, like from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That was more of a fully formed song, but the second single that's coming out on October 13th called Grievances, it's kind of this like angsty, like alt pop song. It's definitely the most upbeat.
Yeah. That's where I got the sort of just like the more sort of driving force that I referenced like earlier, is that like listen to Magic and listen to Agreements, like wow, this is definitely sort of like two ends of a spectrum.
Yeah, and Grievances actually started out as a very slow kind of melancholic song, and it was called Long Drive, and it was like so different. And then the more I sang it, the more I like it wanted to be up tempo. It wanted to be like more powerful, and
yeah.
I ended up like there's a bridge at the end, and it's kind of this bridge outro that wasn't there until a couple weeks before we recorded it, and that song evolved so much. I had no idea where it was going. Just kind of had to be at its whim.
Is that sort of evolutionary type writing and sort of a producing more present in the album, or is it or the predetermined sort of more present, or is it a little bit of both? Like I guess there's some songs where it kind of evolved with the writing, and or was it some where it was already kind of predetermined, like Magic?
I think it's a mix. There's definitely a couple songs that seemed more predetermined. Like the intro song on the album was definitely set. It was the first song I wrote. I had a very specific goal of how I wanted it to sound. Magic felt the same way. And then, I think, and Coast to Coast also, which is a reprise of a song that I wrote with Radderall, which is this other Cleveland dream pop band. And those songs were pretty set, and everything else kind of was I allowed to evolve the way it needed to go. And I think having those pieces together really helped create the story arc. Like it was like there were some like landing points, and then we were just like filling in the gaps of what was missing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess with albums and music in general, I definitely enjoy a sort of like an album list where you can go from where it goes 1 to 10, and it's very seamless and sort of like a journey, right? Do you see Saturnalia as that, where it's just more sort of like it's definitely an album where you go 1 to 10 and you feel completely satisfied, and if you go from like 1 to 7, it's kind of like
I put a lot of thought into the arrangement of the songs and the flow of everything and kind of the story arc. So yeah, I would really encourage people to listen to it the way that it was laid out. And sometimes I like to put albums on shuffle, and like it's fun to do that. But I think this one was definitely designed to be listened to in order,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. With Magic, your first single, is there any sort of like influences like artistically that you pulled to make this song, or is it just something else that you've made sort of yourself? Like, yeah.
Well, I feel like I'm always pulling from a variety of musical influences that I've been absorbing over the years. I think the soundscape of this was very beach house inspired. And I don't know, it's hard to pinpoint like the vocals. I think I wanted this to be more of like a classic, kind of like those classic jazz standard songs that have a theme and like all these literary references and allusions and things like that. So sticking with the theme of magic and using a lot of words to evoke certain feelings from that theme felt more just like a classic song structure, which I don't always do. So I can't even pinpoint an exact artist, but just like that classic song structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the first verse, second verse, chorus, bridge, because a lot of my songs are a little bit more freeform than that. So it felt kind of good to write in a classic song structure. Yeah.
Is Magic a lesson worth learning? Sort of like from you, from everybody, just in general. Like, is this something that you think that everybody should know? Sort of like that longing, sort of regret.
It's definitely a warning, I think, like that love can change, very fickle and volatile, and kind of just surrendering to that. But I think Saturnalia as an album is all about change and just like the inevitability of loss and change and learning to be okay with it and learning to accept it. And Magic ends on kind of this melancholy, sad note. But if you sit with that feeling long enough, I feel like it changes into something else. So it goes into the next song, Prophecy, in a little bit of a seamless way, which is more about regret. And then the next one's about time passing. And then there starts to be a shift in the album, which is acceptance and setting yourself free and kind of accepting the secular, changeable nature of everything, zooming out, looking at the bigger picture. So, yeah, I would say there's definitely a lesson in magic and then a lesson in how magic feeds into the rest of the album, if that makes sense.
Okay. Nice. Saturnalia, what's the plan for the album? Like, when's the release? Like, are you releasing more singles? Like, what are the dates for it? Like, what's up the whole album in general?
So September 15th is when Magic comes out. Grievances comes out on October 13th, and the album comes out on October 27th. And then we're doing, that big concert party to celebrate Halloween weekend. And then, kind of just seeing how the album settles and like what kind of life it takes on of its own. We're going to put out a few live sessions of some of the songs
nice.
post-album release. And then we are planning a spring tour, and not exactly sure what that looks like yet, but definitely probably coming back through North Carolina.
I was supposed to say hit up Raleigh.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool venues and a lot of cool artists. So.
Oh yeah, we love it here.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's and then spending the winter, kind of getting ready to dive into album 2.
Nice.
The process is so much longer than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I think when I was like, I'm gonna write an album, I thought I could record it in a couple months, get it out very quickly. But this has been like almost a 2-year process. So yeah. So excited to get the next the next ball rolling.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up the interview, is there anything else you'd like to say about the album, about Magic? Where can people find you? When does the album release?
Sure. So album comes out on Friday, October 27th, and you can keep up with all the updates and everything, mostly by following my Instagram. So if you want, you can go to wishqueen_. That's where I'm the most active. And then I've got a website going up very soon that will have merch available and pre-orders for the vinyls and, upcoming tour dates, all that good stuff. And you can go to wishqueenmusic.com if you like to stay up to date.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Grace, aka Wish Queen, or I think Wish Queen's a cool name. I think I'll call you Wish Queen from now on.
Yeah, that's great.
For coming down to WKNC and talking with me about your music and your upcoming album.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, and also thank you so much, listener, for listening to this edition of Off the Record. I've been your host, Loaf. This has been Wish Queen, and this is WKNC 88.1 FM Raleigh. Enjoy your day. Peace.